Sir, started, sir.
Started? Right. Let me see the papers.
ఇందులో
Okay, question number 1, 2, 3.
Sir, second one, sir.
Second one.
Yes, sir.
If we don't want the photoelectron to reach there, then this should be equal to what? Diameter or not? This should be equal to diameter then. And diameter we can find out by formula MVR. And R radius is equal to MV by QB. By that we can get answer, I think so.
Sir.
MV we can get by using formula half MV square. First, half MV square is equal to HF
2mk.
HF minus phi. And from here means this I can write as P square by 2m, and then P I will be getting. P square by 2m is this. I get P from here, and that P I will put here. Then I will get radius of this path. I think this is a question of SCV.
Yes, sir.
And SCV
Sir,
is
not
given.
only that, sir.
Yes.
In that given two wavelengths, which we have to select for minimum magnetic field. Two wavelengths are incident, sir. Light out.
We want the we want the photocurrent to be 0 or not?
Yes, sir.
Then I will take here maximum frequency HF max minus phi. That also because if MV is more, then we are noticing that R is becoming more, but it should not touch that. So means largest possible radius if it is having, that also should not be able to touch it. Okay.
Yes.
So I should take MV large. For MV to be large, I should take frequency to be large. For frequency to be large, I should take the wavelength to be small. Okay. So according to this, I have to choose by this. This only I will take. If it is, if
Sir, but it should greater than the work function. Sir.
it should be greater than the.
It should be less than that of the work function. Sir. Lambda.
Wait a second. Hello. Sir, class now up to 4 o'clock class. Okay, I will give you. I think time was sufficient, so that's why I did not pay that much attention. Today I will give you. Okay, understood. Okay, then I will give. Okay, right. I think we have sent already. I'll check. Okay. Okay, right. Okay. Hello. So it is. What, Chandan? You were saying something.
Work function from that we should check, sir.
Work function means the phi. Wait a second. Work function for this is. Work function is given 2.39 electron volt. Work function is already given 2.39 electron volt.
Yes, sir. We should find out the threshold from that.
From that we should find out
Threshold wavelength and check. Lambda less than or equal to threshold wavelength only the photoelectric effect takes place.
That is true. It will take only for that. But if they are saying that, if they are already saying that it is current resist, it is becoming zero, then, and I'm already choosing the smaller wavelength, I don't know what else you want to check. Why should we check? Why should we waste time in checking? And how checking will be tough. If I take HF max minus phi, and if it is coming out to be positive, then it is already greater than phi.
Yes, sir.
It is already greater than. Okay.
Yes.
Next. So we can get answer. I think they may have given answer by taking R as 10. But according to me, answer should be given by taking D as 10, diameter as 10. From the diagram also, it is clear that they have taken it as radius. But according to me, I think some photoelectrons may go this side, and those who are going this side, they also should turn back. Then it can go up to diameter also, no? Right or not? Are you understanding what I am saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So according to me, I should put R as MB by QB, fine for that, no problem. But I should put R as 5. They may have taken R as 10. Because in HCV, he has given by taking R as 10. This is modified question of HCV. HCV exercise question it is. But just modified, they are giving more wavelengths, etc. But fundamentally, it is coming from there only. Anyway.
Same question, sir.
Same, exactly same data also.
Yes, sir.
Data is changed, I think. Data is also same.
Data is also same, sir.
Then it is same question only. Next. Question number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So ninth one option B.
90 sir.
B.
Number of
option B.
electrons emitted by the larger sphere is independent of the potential of the battery. Number of the electrons emitted by the larger sphere.
Option B, sir.
D only I am reading.
B, sir. B. Bombay.
Also explain D also.
The number of electrons emitted by the larger sphere is Q1 minus Q2 by E. Where is the charge on the electron?
Charging it too.
After some time, the charge on the bigger sphere becomes Q1 and on smaller spheres becomes minus Q2. And right. Means what charge flows this side? If it is minus Q2 charge, Q2 flows this side. Then here normally it would become Q1, Q2, but it is becoming Q1. Why? Because Q1 minus Q2 charge has that many electrons have left. Q1 minus Q2 is equal to electrons which are leaving. So this is acquiring charge because of two reasons. One is because of the flow of positive charge in this direction. But how much positive charge is flowing? Q2. But what charge it is acquiring? Q1. Means this it leaves some extra electrons also it is leaving. How many extra electrons it is leaving? it is leaving electrons equivalent to the charge of Q1 minus Q2. Then what is the charge on the n number of electrons, let us say, left? If n number of electrons left, then it will acquire any positive charge also. So any positive charge it is acquiring because of leaving of electrons, and Q2 positive charge it is acquiring because of the transfer by the battery. So what is the total charge acquired by? Total charge because of charge transferred Q2 plus because of charge electron leaving Ne. Therefore, write only Q1 minus Q2 upon E. Okay.
Sir, once again.
What again?
Electrons leaves from first
Electrons
sphere.
will be leaving because of photoelectric effect.
Yes,
What's
sir.
the problem in that?
From the bigger sphere, electrons will be leaves.
Yes, any electrons are left, so any charge is left.
Yes, sir.
Then what charge it will acquire?
Q1.
If Q1 it will not acquire because of just leaving only. It will acquire any positive charge here. Minus Ne will leave and it will acquire plus Ne then. Okay. Because
Yes,
of
sir.
leaving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And also Q2 transfer this side. Then what total
Yes.
it acquires? It acquires Q2 plus Ne. What is that total? That total is equal to Q1.
Yes. Understood.
Sir, 8 to 1 in decimals getting sir answer.
The RMS value of the current is RMS value is 1 square into time T by 2 plus 2 square into T by 2 to 3 by 2 by T by 2 is T plus again same repeats, I think. So this upon time total 3T by 2 under the root. What is it at last? 1 by 2 plus 4 divided by 3 by 2 under the root. Root 3. Then we are getting n as 6. Why decimals? It is equal to root n by 2.
Sir, understood.
Formula was sigma I RMS IK RMS square into TK upon sigma TK under the root. That is the formula. Okay.
Yes.
Next.
Ninth D option.
Ninth D option. The number of electrons emitted by the larger sphere is independent of the potential of the battery. Number of electrons emitted by the larger sphere will when it will stop emitting the electrons. It will stop emitting the electrons when it will acquire stopping potential. Stop emitting means it will emit, but number emitted will be equal to number coming back. So it will be like a equilibrium. That will happen when it acquires potential V. And that potential which it acquires relative to vacuum
రాహుల చూడలేదు
మూడు సార్లు అబ్బాయిలే నేను ఫస్ట్ సెకండ్ థర్డ్
రాహుల్ ఇప్పుడు ఏం చేయ
number of electrons emitted by the larger sphere is independent of the potential of the battery. I think it may depend on potential of battery. Let us try to find out stopping potential formula. And V naught. And V naught is also equal to K into charge acquired by it, Q1 divided by R1. So Q1 is equal to HF minus phi upon E into R1 upon K. I'm assuming the distance between them is very large as compared to R1 and R2. So its potential on this I'm not taking. Otherwise, this will become more complicated. I just want to analyze what happens when the distance is large. Then Q1 becomes this. What happens after that? Then Q1 what about Q2? That is also another unknown. Q2 will be if I assume the distance between them to be not that much large, then I will add here one more term will add up here. It will become plus K into Q2 by R. Not able to decide easily whether it will depend or not. It seems it will depend on the case whether the distance is large or small. If the distance is very, very large, then I can assume that it has no role to play on this, and then in that case, I think it will depend. Because if I can choose I think it will depend. Because I can choose Q2 in such a way that I can in fact make Q1 minus Q2 upon E as 0 also. Right or not? The so much charge can flow from this to this side. It will automatically acquire charge equal to I think it will depend on the potential of the battery also. What is also given by them.
It will
Given
depend.
yes wrong, sir.
Hmm?
They given ABC, sir.
Independent, they are giving wrong. So it means I said dependent, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I said it will depend. That only I'm expecting. It will depend because I can choose the battery in such a way so that the charge flown itself will become equal to Q1, let us say. And if it becomes Q1, then Q1 minus Q1 upon E will be 0 only. Definitely it is dependent in that case. We can see it may not be ejecting any electron also. I think it depends. To those who are thinking how it depends, how I said that, because I know that before even photoelectric effect also, we used to ask such questions, that if there are two spheres, what will be the charge in this? You remember such questions we used to ask before also? So we used to take this like just like a capacitor. We used to take it like a capacitor C1, C2. And then by assuming this capacitance is between this and infinity, and this also between this and infinity, if the distance between them is very large, then we are used to assume like that. Then we can take the effective capacitance and we can find out what is the charge flown from one side to the other side. So because that charge flown is independent of HF and phi, then I can choose HF and phi in such a way that I can make HF minus phi upon E, that which is equal to stopping potential V. That stopping potential into C1 I can keep in such a way, into C1 if I multiply, that will give me Q1. So I can choose it in such a way so that I can make it even equal to Q2, because these are independent of each other. I have to change the metal here to change phi, and by changing phi I can change Q1, and by changing Q1 I can make Q1 minus Q2 0 also, and I can make I can get this condition so that no even photoelectric emission also does not take place, or it takes place but the whatever charges are leaving, those are returning back. That kind of situation is possible. So I think yes, it depends. Any other doubt? Any other doubt?
Sir, 15th one, C, sir.
Electrical energy is transmitted over a large distance at high alternating voltages. Which of the following statements is correct? Lower current implies less power loss in transmission lines. Correct. Transmission lines can be made thinner. High alternating voltages. By making them thinner, we can increase the resistance per unit length. But if we increase the resistance per unit length, even then also the overall resistance will not be that much high and power loss will be less only. Yes, we can make the transmission lines thinner, I think, right? For a given power level, there is a lower current. It is easy to reduce the voltage at the receiving end using step down transformers. Seems all are correct only.
Yes, sir, but they didn't give C, sir.
They did not give C. So I don't know why they asked this question.
D
They
is
don't.
not a reason of for high voltage transmissions.
Uses C.
They are not saying reasons. They are saying just which of the following statements are correct. It is not assertion reason based. Just which of the following statements are correct. Although it looks like assertion reason, because they are discussing before that electrical energy is transmitted over a large distance at high alternating voltages, right? They are transmitted over a large distance over high alternating voltages because for a given power there is a lower current. Lower current implies less power loss in transmission lines. It is easy to reduce the voltage at the receiving end using step down transformers. If it is not easy to reduce the voltage at the receiving end during step down transformers, then why would we transmit over large distance using the alternating voltages by using high voltages? We are able to do that only because we can reduce it finally. So D is also a reason of, we can say it is reason also. If we have no such opportunity to reduce the voltage, then probably we will never transmit it at high voltage. We may have to transmit it at lower voltages also probably. But because we have easiness, we can always reduce the voltage. Although even then, it will become very difficult. Means now it is a hypothetical scenario. What would happen in that case? I don't know. That would be completely different technology if we would be transmitting it with a lower voltage only. But nowadays we know that it is not suitable for us because of many reasons, power losses, and because of the feasibility and easiness to make it step down. So according to me, A, B, C, and D, C also I thought right only because I thought probably this could be the reason that transmission line is there, and I can make the transmission line somewhat thinner also comparatively, because I can afford to make the resistance to be large by making the line thinner. Why can I afford to make the resistance large? Because if power loss is less, then even if resistance becomes large, then I don't have an issue. So I thought maybe C also might be the answer, but I don't know why they have not given C and why they asked C. If they should not have asked it, or they should have given it also in one case. It also appears to be right justification. Anyway, although I'm not that much disagreeing also, according to me, if they give ABD, fair enough. C was hardest to correlate. I correlated it somehow, but I was also not sure whether C should be correct or not. But anyway, A, B, and D are definitely correct only according to me. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And C is just a matter of discussion. Now, what comes in somebody's mind, why he asked this question, nobody knows. Maybe next time somebody asks, they may give C also as correct. So it depends. So or maybe they may have given from the practical point of view. Practically, those who are really making these transmission lines, probably they will never consider this factor into account, but they consider the other factors into account probably. That might be the reason. I don't know what is the reason, but okay. I'm not that much against C, but also I'm thinking C also could be correct. So I'm not able to decide C properly. Anyway, 16, 17. What? What? Voice is not clear. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let me see the reason. I have solution also. Why don't I see the reason only? Which question we were discussing for that 20?
15,
But they will.
sir.
But I think they will not give any reason. They will say just conception only. Obviously, ABD. Yes. Energy losses, no skin effect minimum when the for transmitting power, energy loss is no skin effect minimum when the wire is minimum. Okay, ABD I think is better only. Another thought is coming to my mind, because have you seen the transmission wires? Those are like
Somewhat thicker.
no, means there are several such wires and they are joined together, I think. Have you seen that?
Yes, sir.
It is not made up of single wire. It's made up of several such wires joined together. Then we get a single wire.
Yes, sir.
Means they turn around each other like this here. Have you seen that? Multiple wires, they turn around each other and then they make a big thicker wire. So the reason for doing that is something. If I take a single thicker wire, what is the problem in that? Let us say I want to take a single thicker wire. When we want to transmit AC, then in AC, the current inside the wire does not flow uniformly throughout. Current inside the wire does not flow uniformly throughout. Current tends to flow at the surface. Okay, means if it is alternating current, in that case only. In alternating current case, it happens. In alternating current, some I think it happens because of the when the current varies. When the current varies, the magnetic field varies. When the magnetic field varies, it creates some induced EMF in such a way so that the charges tend to accumulate at the charges which are moving. They tend to go through the surface rather than through the inside. They tend to go through the not. They don't tend to go through the bulk. They can tend to go through the surface. As the charges tend to go through the surface, we call this thing as skin effect also. This tendency of the charges to go just through the surface only, not through the bulk, we call it as skin effect. That happens only for AC circuits. And because of this tendency, overall effective resistance of this wire will not be rho L by A for AC. That will become different. Why it will become different? Because rho L by A I will take if the current is uniformly spread throughout. But if its current is only at the surface, then it will be something else. Then effective area will get reduced. Effective area will be only near the surface. It could be like this: rho L upon 2 pi R into some width at the surface, nearly delta R maybe. So because of that, effective resistance becomes high and the power losses may increase. So in order to avoid those power losses, what we do, rather than taking a single wire, we take multiple wires. Now, if I take multiple such wires and on each wire surface, it tends to move, then also overall surface area effectively will increase or not. Now it is still tending to move on the surface of this inner one on their surfaces, but now because we have several such wires, so overall surface area will increase because of that as compared to a single wire. In the single wire, it will flow through this much area, let us say. But when we have taken multiple wires, then in each wire, if I take some small thickness through which it is flowing, then overall the area through which this current flows increases. If I take several such wires and I join them together. So I think we have never this concern that we want to make the wires thicker or thinner. In fact, we want to split the wires into multiple parts and each part is already thinner. And the several such small parts we are already joining together to make a single wire. So means those things we are already doing, I think. So that's why I think he's, we can say that C will not be the right option. Where is that C? Again, let me read. Transmission lines can be made thinner. Means single transmission line, we are already making it to several small thinner parts. I think probably we cannot make it further thinner or something. These are already, we are trying to reduce the thickness of each small part as much as possible and then collecting already several such thinner wires together to make a single bigger wire. Okay. That we are doing because of AC. So single wire cannot be made thinner, but a single wire has to be split into multiple wires. So that overall area of cross section through which the current flows becomes larger. The tendency of the current to flow through the surface of the wire is called as skin effect. We want to reduce the skin effect. Okay. Yes. Voice is not clear at all. Your voice is not clear. What is for this week now?
Atoms, X-rays, Bohr's model.
Atoms, X-rays and
Bohr's model.
Bohr's atomic model. These three things only.
Atomic models.
Okay. I can include in the modern physics only. Where is the modern physics? Here it is. So let us start. X-rays is one way to go, or Bohr's atomic model another way. X-rays. Wait a second. I will prefer to take from HCV only. I will not be able to make better diagrams also otherwise. I will explain there only. It is better to explain in HCV. Coolidge tube experiment. Where is that? X-ray, I think, is a different chapter in this.
Next chapter.
X-rays. Here it is. So you can read the theory from here. I will tell you the details, the important points only. So this Coolidge tube experiment is used to produce, this Coolidge tube is a device which is used to produce X-rays. Okay. Designed by Coolidge. What is in this? There's a hot filament here. Let me show you. This is the filament here. Let me make this diagram bigger. This is a filament here. This is hot filament and it has separate voltage we apply here so that it becomes very hot. By becoming hot, it is like a heater only, nothing else. This heater will heat this cathode. This heater will heat the cathode here. This is the cathode. And this cathode is something which will emit electrons. This thing will emit, this cathode will emit electrons here. Okay. This cathode will emit electrons from here. And this is anode on the other side. This side is anode. So while the electrons go here, these are accelerated through the potential difference applied here, V. Somewhat like apparatus appears like, it appears like photoelectric effect apparatus, but there are a lot of differences. There also we have some potential applied externally. But the purpose of the potential was just to verify whether by changing this potential can we increase the saturation current or not. But here the purpose of this potential is to accelerate the electrons so that they gain more kinetic energy. When the kinetic energy increases for them, here the electron comes out with nearly zero kinetic energy in the beginning. In this case, there is nothing like HF minus phi initial kinetic energy will not be there. It is just zero kinetic energy. And here, why the electrons are coming out of this cathode? Not because some photons are made to incident on it, not because of that reason. This is called as thermionic emission. What kind of emission? Thermionic emission. What do you mean by thermionic emission? Thermionic emission. Thermionic emission means which is because of temperature. This is just because of temperature. There is no photon incident on it, but even then there is a emission, and that is because of the temperature of this. As the things become very hot, as certain metals become very hot, then because of the high temperature or high energy of the metal, the electrons also gain sufficient energy, so that they come out of the crystal or out of this metallic out of the metal. They come out of the metal. So because they are able to come out of the metal, and they come out with nearly zero kinetic energy. And if they come out with zero kinetic energy, they have to accelerate to reach the anode. And we want to provide as large energy as large enough energy. So that why we want to provide large enough energy? The reason is, after providing large enough energy, these electrons will lose large energy. When the electrons lose a large energy, then we will be getting X-rays will be emitted. Why the X-rays are emitted? X-rays are emitted because of the retardation of electrons. Electrons get retarded. Electrons are retarded at anode. Electrons are retarded at anode, and we have a well-known fact that all the accelerating charges, accelerating is acceleration only, all the charges will be producing rays. This is a well-known fact. We know it, that whenever the charges accelerate, whether they speed up or whether their speed decreases, in both cases, they will be resulting in production of let us say these are electrons are retarded here. Here these are retarded here in this space. Okay, I'm just telling directly here. At the target, the electrons are retarded, and as these are target is nothing but that anode is target only. And when the electrons are retarded, then these will emit X-rays. So X-rays energy will be coming from the electrons. The electrons are having more energy, then X-rays will be of more energy. We call higher energetic X-rays, we call as hard X-rays. There are two kinds of X-rays, hard X-rays and soft. Hard and soft. Hard means higher energy, and soft means a little bit lesser energy. So energy will be more when the accelerating potential will be more, then energy will be more. When we increase the V value, then energy will become more, because the energy gained by electron is equal to E into V, and that only becomes equal to kinetic energy, and that kinetic energy gets converted into now photon, means that becomes equal to H F max, and that also becomes equal to Hc by lambda minimum. Why I'm calling it as HF max and why Hc by lambda minimum? Because these X-rays are not of single frequency. These are of different kinds of frequencies. When the electrons will be retarded, sometimes the electrons retard like okay, let me give an example. If I take a head-on collision of one electron with some atom, and suddenly its energy completely becomes zero, then the complete kinetic energy will convert into photon. Then the maximum possible frequency of photon which we get will be obtained by this. F max will become equal to EV by H. EV divided by H will be equal to F max, the maximum possible frequency of X-ray. Similarly, what is the minimum possible lambda wavelength of the X-ray? Minimum possible wavelength of X-ray will be obtained by this formula again. Lambda minimum will become equal to Hc by EV. But it does not mean I have just one wavelength. I have other wavelengths possible, which are all greater than lambda minimum. All other wavelengths of X-rays will be greater than lambda minimum, and all other frequencies obtained by this here, all these frequencies will be in this place. Whatever frequency we are obtaining, those frequencies will be less than F max, less than F max. Okay, so we have a upper limit of frequency and we have a lower limit of wavelength, which we get, and that wavelength limit we decide by the accelerating potential. Can I make the lambda minimum to be smaller than this value? Yes, by changing V. I have to increase value of V. If I increase V, then lambda minimum will become even smaller, because lambda minimum formula is equal to Hc. I cannot change H, I cannot change C. I cannot change charge on electron. I can change only V. If I increase V, then automatically, the lambda minimum decreases. Is it okay? So far understood or not?
Yes, sir.
right? And this is just a pipe here. One pipe they are showing here. Water is coming, and it is just purpose of cooling. It has a just purpose to cool it, because otherwise I think it will become so much heated up that it may start melting or something. So we don't want that to happen. So water will be cooling it continuously. Target will be continuously cooled. What is target made up of? Target is made up of high atomic number metals. High atomic number. Okay. This is of some high atomic number metals, and in that the electrons will be colliding, and they will be losing the energy in that, and then they will be emitting the X-rays. But what is the if I want to plot the graph of energy intensity obtained, intensity of the X-rays versus lambda, then I will notice that there will be no intensity, zero intensity before lambda minimum, because no wavelength, no such photon will be coming which has less than lambda wavelength, and then it will increase and it will attain some peak. But other than the normal, now I have to show the graph somewhere. This is the graph here. See, this is how we obtain intensity. Intensity increases. This is lambda minimum, below which there was no intensity obtained, zero intensity, and it increases. But see here what happens. This is the graph normally. This is the expected graph that, okay, it will increase and then it will decrease, because it is very less probable that some electron loses all the energy by head-on collision. Therefore, there are very less number of photons which are having this wavelength. Therefore, there is less intensity obtained corresponding to lambda minimum. There is less intensity obtained corresponding to lambda minimum. So it has nearly zero intensity. So most of the electrons will be losing energy in multiple steps. This is, let us say, atom, and this is electron coming here. It will collide with it, collides with it. Multiple collisions, one collision, second collision, third collision. And after that, let us say the electrons comes to nearly rest after colliding 3 times. Then what happens when it collides 3 times? Then every time it gets retarded. And every time when it gets retarded, then we can see that every time one photon will be emitted. One photon, second photon, third photon. On the other hand, some electron may come here, and the first instant only it will collide in such a way head on, and it loses all the energy. Then that will emit a single photon of very large energy. Understood or not? So when multiple photons are emitted, then energy will become less than hc lambda by lambda minimum. Energy will become less than that. But there will be more number of photons of such type. So intensity obtained corresponding to those will be more. Energy per photon will be less here, but more number of photons are of such type. So intensity obtained will be less, more, because of number of photons will increase. But at the same time, those electrons which are having very, which will emit X-ray of very high wavelength, or which lose energy very less, that also will have very less intensity finally. Those electrons will also, corresponding to those photons also, we have less intensity obtained. Okay. But what are those peaks here? These peaks, what are these peaks referring to? This peak and this peak. We were expecting normally this kind of graph, but there is something K beta K alpha, they are naming it K beta K alpha. What does it mean? This takes place because of, in every atom, there are electrons revolving around it. And those electrons are in K shell, KLMN, you know the shell's names, KLMN, you know about these or not?
Yes, sir.
There are shells KLMN, okay? So from K shell to L shell, some electron can jump, or maybe it can go to infinity also. This may acquire, so it cannot go to L shell, by the way. How can it go to L shell? In L shell already the electrons are occupied. So if some electron coming from outside hits the target and removes the K shell electron and makes it escape to infinity, then there will be one vacancy created in the K shell. If one vacancy is created in the K shell, then some electron will jump from L to K shell to fill that vacancy. And when it jumps from L to K shell to fill that vacancy, then we will get the corresponding photon, which we call as K alpha. What we call it as K alpha transition photon, or we call it sometimes lambda alpha. This we call as lambda alpha. What we mean by alpha and beta here? Alpha, beta will be when it comes from M to K. Sometimes it may happen that L shell electron may not come to K, although there will be less probability. But sometimes M shell electron may come to K. If M shell electron comes to K, we call such transition as K beta. What we call that transition as K beta. What will be K gamma if something comes from N? But that is even having lesser probability. So there will be very less chances. They are just representing K alpha, K beta. But there could be K gamma also sometimes, but it has less chance. So mostly it will be K alpha, K beta. If L shell electrons escapes, then there could be L alpha, and if it is coming from N to L, then it will be called as L beta transition. Photons can be regarded as alpha, lambda, beta, or L alpha, K alpha, lambda, K beta, something. Take just one from which shell? L, M, K shell. Which shell?
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are not audible, sir.
Not audible.
It's breaking in between, sir.
Wait a second then.
Now it's okay, sir.
Okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me repeat again if I lost something. I am just saying that there are several shells K, L, M, N. When the electron comes and hits the K shell electron of the target atom, the electrons coming from the cathode, if it hits the K shell electron of the target atom, then it will make the K shell electron jump to the infinity. And then L shell electron will come to fill up the vacancy of K shell. This we call as K alpha. L to K is K alpha. M to K is K beta. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So this K alpha and K beta will depend on the K alpha and K beta will depend on nature of
Again, voice breaking, sir.
again breaking.
Oh, sir, audible, sir.
K alpha and K beta will depend on nature of metal. It will depend on the nature of metal. Okay, few things that I expect everybody to learn by now. Beta bang kisko. Do you know what is cathode? What is anode? One thing.
Yes, sir.
What kind of target metal we use? High atomic number target metal. What this V does? it increases the kinetic energy of electron.
Accelerate.
What happens if kinetic energy of electron increases? We obtain higher energy X-rays. What we call those X-rays as?
Hard X-rays.
Hard X-rays. How do the X-rays? How do the electrons emit X-rays? By losing energy. How do they lose energy? By retardation. How do they retard? By suffering multiple collisions, one after the other, or sometimes single head-on collision. What kind of X-ray curve we obtain if I plot intensity versus lambda curve? This kind of curve. What are those two peaks referring to? Those two peaks are referring to the nature of metal used. Lambda minimum depends on V, but K, beta, and K, this where this peak takes place, where this peak will take place corresponding to 80 unit wavelength or 90 unit wavelength, or what wavelength it will be, that will depend on nature of target metal. So we call this curve, we break into two parts. This part we call as continuous curve, and this part we call as characteristic X-ray. Lambda minimum is a part of continuous curve. So continuous curve depends on accelerating potential. But the characteristic curve depends on, as the name suggests, character of something. It depends on the character of something. Character means nature of something. Nature of what? Nature of target metal. This wavelength we call as cutoff wavelength and threshold wavelength also, lambda minimum. What we call it as? Cutoff wavelength or threshold wavelength. Two types of X-rays: characteristic X-rays, continuous X-rays. The kinetic energy of the electrons is reduced as a part of the total loss. Kinetic energy is converted into photon of the energy received by the colliding particles converted into heat energy. The electron knocks out the inner electron of the atom with which it collides. The fraction of kinetic energy appearing as the energy of photon varies from collision to collision. I have discussed all this thing. Now you can just read it here and understand it better. These are K shell, L shell, M shell, N shell. HCV uses different convention. We normally in books we find like this: K, L, M, N. Energy of K is less. L has more energy, M has more energy, and N has more energy. But HCV uses opposite convention. E is rise, K to L, M to N. Means the diagram difference in the diagram, but it is same thing only. So when it is K to L transition, then it is K alpha. When it is K to M transition, then it is K beta.
Sir, L to K is K alpha, K to L, then it is K alpha, sir.
What do you mean by L to K and K to L? Can electron go to K to L? Can electron go K to L? No, electron will never go to K to L. How will it go K to L? It will always come from L to K.
Yes, sir.
So whether it is diagram is made like this does not mean it is coming from K to L. It is always coming from L to K. As the electron comes from L to K, it emits photon. So here K alpha simply means it is just like K alpha is like energy difference. Energy of K minus energy of L. That is energy of alpha type photon, we can say. K alpha type photon. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. That's it. Nothing much is there in this. And then we have this Moseley's law, which I will discuss. But to discuss Moseley's law, I think I have to first And you also learn the properties of X-rays today. You learn the properties of X-rays also. This also you learn from here. What are the properties? These are, first of all, keep in mind, all the X-rays or other rays, all these are electromagnetic waves. The electromagnetic waves can be reflected back from the mirrors, something like that may happen. These may be refracted, diffraction may take place, refraction may take place. So all these things will happen for X-rays also. These can be diffracted. These can be, as the electromagnetic waves are not deflected by the electric and magnetic fields. This is also electromagnetic wave. So it will also not be deflected by the electric or magnetic field. If a light ray is coming and if I send the light ray through the electric field, does the light ray deviate? No, it does not deviate. Same thing happens for X-ray also, because it is also electromagnetic wave. X-rays can cause fluorescence. X-rays can ionize the molecules of the gases. These can penetrate into several metals and other materials. These have affect the photolithographic plate more strongly than the visible light. That's it, and some other things you can, here also some other, they have given some other examples where we use these. Okay. We use these to detect structural defects, faults in the joints. Something inside the metal is there and I cannot see it, but with the X-rays I can find out whether there is some cavity inside or there is some structural defect inside. I can find it out. We can determine it. We can also study teeth decay. We already know dentists use it. Chest radiographs. Okay. In hospitals we use X-rays. So there are a lot of uses of it. And one thing about this or about other rays also, if I have a X-ray coming off intensity I0 and it is X width, then after that intensity may become equal to I0 into e raised to power minus x by lambda. Lambda is not wavelength, by the way, here. Or you just don't write lambda, you may be confused from this. L. What is L? L is called as some characteristic length. It is that length in which the intensity drops to 1 by E times the initial intensity. What is L length? L length is that length which is in which the intensity becomes I0 by E. So for a given material, this L length will be fixed. If I change the material, then L length will be different. But always intensity of X-ray after passing through the metal will always become I0 into e raised to power minus x by L. This will always be true. This thing we can learn, and then this formula we are left with. This formula, have you done it in chemistry or not? This one. Not done?
Yes.
I think not done, huh?
Done, sir.
Sir, most
Okay, wait a second. Let me go to. Now, before that, before I explain other things, I will have to jump back the previous chapter. Those things are must in order to get a detailed idea of this Bohr's atomic model. And Bohr's atomic model, I will prefer to take, I think, myself only, not from here. Yes, not from here. This I will take myself only. I will not explain it from here. So because I don't have to draw any diagram in this, in Bohr's atomic model, just this circles I have to draw, that's it. No problem. I can do it. Already?
Done in chemistry.
Bohr's atomic model done already?
In chemistry, sir.
Then nice. Then you know already many things. But okay, few things. Just a kind of revision maybe. Okay.
Yes, sir. Why not audible?
What is your problem? Not audible. I cannot really not do anything.
Completely breaking.
Why is it breaking? Clear only?
Yes, sir. Clear it, sir.
Clear, sir.
Problem is on your side. Why are you saying, telling again and again, Pritam? Okay. Maxim, you can wait for when Chandran will send this class again in the YouTube. There you can see. That is what I can do now. What else we can do if voice is not clear? This is there's a small nucleus here, and surrounding the nucleus we have different orbits, circular orbits. In reality, we don't have circular orbits, but Bohr assumed like that. We assumed the orbits to be circular. I think little bit you should know about Thomson model also, what Thomson assumed. You know about Thomson model, Thomson atomic model,
Pudding.
plum pudding model. Then you know it about it. That much we should know that what he assumed. He assumed that in every atom there is a positive charge everywhere, and in between positive charge some electrons are like seeds. Something like that he assumed. And then comes Rutherford's model. Rutherford told us about the nucleus. Rutherford told us about the nucleus. He said that
Alpha scattering element.
alpha particle scattering experiment. Rutherford conducted alpha particle scattering experiment. Alpha particle scattering experiment, in which he took a thin gold foil and he made some alpha particles too. So let us say we have this radioactive element here, and from here alpha particles are being emitted. Those alpha particles will be going in a straight line because he is making a narrow passage for them. So all the alpha particles which are just going through this narrow passage, if I take a narrow passage and I make something pass through it, then definitely that will be going in a straight line only. These alpha particles go in a straight line, and they are accelerated after gaining a suitable energy. They are made to pass through gold foil, and what we observe after that, that most of the alpha particles
Undeviated.
go undeviated. Most of the alpha particles go undeviated only. But at the same time, some alpha particles are deviated by different angles. And in fact, some alpha particles are like that also, which are just having 180-degree collision backwards. He is able to detect all these alpha particles by placing a circular screen. So on that circular screen, he was getting the on circular screens, he was able to when the particles were hitting the screen. Yes, the screen was some spark or fluorescence was there in the screen. As a result, he was able to detect that where the particles are hitting. So most of the particles were hitting directly head on only, straight in the same straight line. Some were deviated and some were strangely enough deviated by 180-degree opposite angle also. So by this he concluded that it means the nucleus is very tiny, in which the entire positive charge is there. That is very tiny fraction of that occupies a very small volume as compared to the total volume of the atom. Therefore, most of the alpha particles are going undeviated. The ones which are going very close to the nucleus, those will be deviated. But most of others which are going very far away from it, those will be undeviated. It means because most are undeviated, it means most are going far away from the nucleus. And very less are deviated, it means less are there which are reaching very close to the nucleus, and as a result they are getting deviated by some angles. By that he concluded that the nucleus radius of nucleus is nearly 10 raised to power minus 5 times the radius of atom. That was very surprising thing at that time, because before this they thought that nucleus is also there is nothing like nucleus, and positive charge is also spread everywhere, and the negative charge also is spread everywhere. But it was very surprising thing that the nucleus is very tiny bit of the complete atom. Rutherford also explained this thing then, that the electrons are revolving around the nucleus in circular orbits. These things he explained. So he did not only just tell us about the small size of the nucleus, he told one more thing, that the electrons are revolving around the nucleus in circular orbits. So what are the things that Rutherford told us? Small size of nucleus, and he said electrons revolving around nucleus, as in circular orbits, I can say, as in planetary motion. As in the planetary motion. These things he told successfully. So this was success of the model. What was the failure of this? Failure was planetary atomic model. Planetary, like I should say, like planetary motion of electron around nucleus. This was success failure. It is a well-known fact that any charge which accelerates will lose energy. It was a well-known fact by that time. By that time, Rutherford said these things. There were experiments which were conducted also, by which we were able to prove that any charge which is accelerating definitely loses some energy. This was the perception at that time. So when Rutherford was asked to tell about it, why it does not lose energy, he was not able to tell any reason why it is not able to lose any energy. Because everybody thought, and he also thought that yes, it should lose energy, but somehow it is not losing the energy. Why? He could not explain. And why it is accelerating, even if it is moving with the constant speed also, electrons are moving with constant speed, then also there is a centripetal acceleration, v square by r, that will always be there. And if centripetal acceleration is there, then energy loss must be there. So charges lose energy in accelerating charges, I should say. Accelerating charges lose energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation. This will make atoms very unstable. Why unstable? Electrons will collapse into the nucleus. Electrons will collapse into the nucleus soon, so then it is not even possible. And it will. They calculated time also, and I think they found the time to be of the order of microsecond. Means time will be so small for the atoms to the electrons to collapse into nucleus. That then how the atoms are stable? That was the question. Why the atoms are stable, and that Rutherford could not explain. Then comes
Coulomb force.
no, not Coulomb. So he's still not understanding. Coulomb's force was not the reason for it to make stable. Coulomb's force was the reason by which it is moving in a circular path. Otherwise, why is it moving in a circular path? He was able to explain that.
So electron won't fall into the nucleus, no, sir, due to Coulomb force. It
You are not
bands into the
no, wait, completely missed. You are not even. Are you on paying attention on what I'm saying again and again? Are you even paying attention on that? I am saying that accelerating charges lose energy. Are you even listening to this word, or are you even thinking about it? What does it even mean? You are even completely ignoring it, as if it is nothing written here. And this is very important line here, which I am reading here. Accelerating charges lose energy. It is accelerating electron or not? Say something. Then it should lose energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation. So it will start radiating. Atom will radiate, and as the atom radiates, then energy will keep on losing and it will fall into the earth. Same way as in case of some satellite, let us say we make to move around the earth. But let us say satellite does not go very high and it is still in the air. So will it lose energy because of air drag or not?
Yes, sir.
Then if it loses energy because of air drag, then will it fall into the earth or not?
Yes, sir.
Same way I am saying, same way it will fall into the earth. There is nothing like it. This will be stable because of it has some energy. It will lose. If it loses energy, then it will its kinetic energy will reduce. So it will spiral down into the earth, not into the earth, into the nucleus. Okay, that is the reason. He was not able to explain. Oh my God, you are thinking that Rutherford, person like Rutherford, he will not be able to explain such things really. That there was a centrifugal force and that was being balanced by that. Really, do you think that?
No, sir.
It was not that reason. He was not able to explain that why it loses energy. And I think after that, Bohr gave the reason for that. What reason he gave? He said that it will not lose energy because of just this reason, that those orbits will be stable orbits. Certain orbits will be stable. In that, the electrons don't lose energy, and those orbits will be those orbits in which 2 pi r will be equal to n lambda. I think this was not although told by Bohr. Bohr said something else, but Bohr said that those orbits will be stable. Those orbits will be stable in which MVR will be equal to Bohr's atomic model. Bohr's atomic model. Same model only, no difference at all. But he explained it. He also said, he said that, sorry, MVR is equal to NH upon 2 pi. Angular momentum is equal to NH upon 2 pi, where n is some integer. So this will give us the orbits which will be stable. Those will be some discrete level of orbits. All orbits will not be stable. Only in these orbits the electrons will be stable if it is moving in any of these orbits. And once it is moving in these orbits, then it does not lose energy. And now and then means sometimes. 8 seconds. Okay, let me go to this only. He said that it loses energy now and then, sometimes, but when electron loses energy, then it can jump from one orbit to the other orbit directly, and then it will lose that energy only, which will be called the energy difference between those two orbits. Okay, let us say it is orbit number 1, orbit number 2, energy in second orbit minus energy in first orbit. That will be the energy of the photon emitted. So it can emit photons only of the energy equal to the energy gap between the orbits. He said that. Okay. Understood? But why it happens, that was told by, finally, de Broglie. He said that electron acts like a wave. And if electron acts like a wave, then this wave can interfere with itself. Electron will be moving forward, and then it will be, while it is turns back to this place again, then if the crest meets the crest, then there will be constructive interference. That means such orbits will be stable. But if the crest meets the trough, then there will be minima. So in that case, the wave will vanish. No wave will be remaining. Electron wave will not be remaining. So he said which orbits will be stable, in which 2 pi r will be equal to n lambda, where lambda is de Broglie wavelength, which can be found by h by mv. So he said that mvr will be equal to nh upon 2 pi. Are we getting same thing again or not? But explained in a different way by de Broglie. So means Bohr somehow gave us this formula. I don't know how he thought about this formula, where he got this idea when he was not even knowing that it is because of 2 pi r equal to n lambda. But somehow he did some calculations in his mind and he thought that it is only valid when mvr is equal to nh upon 2 pi. But same formula de Broglie got from his dual nature of matter, that matter can act as a wave. So 2 pi r can be equal to n lambda. So therefore mvr should be equal to nh upon 2 pi. So we can remember the de Broglie method. By that we will never forget. Or it is your choice. If you want to remember mvr equal to nh upon 2 pi, that is also okay. Understood so far?
Yes, sir.
So can the electron lose energy in according to Bohr atomic model? Yes, but it will lose energy only from when it goes from one level to another level. But not it cannot lose any continuous form of energy. It will lose only discrete forms of energy when it will be coming from one level to the other level. For example, L shell to K shell, or M to K or M to N, something like, means some discrete level should be there. And if it gains energy, when the electron gains energy, then it goes from L to K. But it will go from L to K only when we make photon incident, whose energy is equal to the energy gap between these two. Then only it can jump onto the from L to K level. That should be equal to that energy gap, right? So we know somewhat fundamentals. Now I will try to prove some relations here, one after the other, quickly. One relation is what we want to find out. What is our objective? Our objective is Rn, Vn, time period, frequency, etc., current, magnetic field, magnetic dipole moment. I will find all these things. What does Rn mean here?
Nth orbit.
Radius of nth orbit of hydrogen like atoms. What does it mean by hydrogen like atoms?
H plus Li2 plus
Single,
Single electron species.
single electron.
yes, single electron species.
Li plus
Means that can be He plus, lithium 2 plus, helium plus, lithium 2 plus, and so on. Okay. Or H. This means Bohr atomic model also failed in a way, because he was able to explain only single electron species, but he was not able to explain multi-electron species. So there are better models than that. Means in reality, what Bohr said is also not true. Do you know that do you think that electrons really move in a circular orbits only? Do you think like that?
No.
No, it is not right.
no sir.
Electrons
No,
form like clouds. Some electron cloud is there, and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle tells us that electrons cannot even move in a well-defined path. That is itself the mistake. If we say electron moves in just well-defined path in a circular orbit, that is mistake. We can never determine its position accurately. So according to Heisenberg's principle, uncertainty principle, we can decide on an average where the electron will be, but we cannot tell exactly where it will be. So that notion of electron moving in a circular orbit was also wrong, and it cannot explain many other things. So, but it was very successfully explaining us the hydrogen spectrum, etc. Many things it explained. So those I will be discussing how it explained. What does it mean? First of all, Rn. Rn means radius of nth orbit. Similarly, Vn, velocity of electron in the nth orbit. Tn, time period of the nth orbit. Frequency of the nth orbit. In, current. When electron moves in a orbit, we can think it like a current flowing in a loop. So if it is a current flowing in the loop, then charge flowing per unit time, that will be the current. We can find that also. Then after finding the current in a loop, then we can find out the magnetic field at the center, at the nucleus. That we can find out. Then we can also find out the magnetic moment. Magnetic moment will be I into area. I into pi Rn square. In into pi Rn square. Bn will be equal to mu naught into In upon 2 into Rn. Okay, In will be equal to charge flowing, that is electron charge E, upon time period of orbit Tn. So this formula we know. Then every formula will come very fast. Just I need to find Rn and Vn. Time period also comes from there. Time period will be 2 pi Rn divided by Vn. So easy to find time period. And frequency will be 1 upon time period. So you notice all these things will come quickly. But first we should know what is Rn and what is Vn. So I will focus only on these two. Okay. Let us start from our two equations. Centrifugal force mv square by r is equal to k z is the atomic number of the nucleus, z is square upon r square. Then I can write as mv r into v is equal to k z square. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Then that is nh upon 2 pi into v is equal to, so what is velocity? Kz square upon nh what is k?
1 by 4 pi.
1 by 4 pi epsilon naught.
Can I change k?
9 into 10.
Vacuum.
I cannot change k. I cannot. Nothing medium. Oh my god, these boys are not understanding the things properly. What is medium which you will put in between nucleus and electron? Can you put some medium between nucleus and electron? We are discussing about electron moving around the nucleus. It will always be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught only, nothing else. Is it understood? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
We cannot change k, we cannot change e, k e square. In a hypothetical world, they can change. They can say, assume the electron charge is not e, it is 2e or 3e, then it is a different thing. But otherwise, if I don't assume hypothetical world, then e will be same. Planck's constant will be same in our real world, not in hypothetical world, obviously. Into 2 pi will be same only. Yeah, okay, so k e square 2 pi upon h. These things will be right. Then we are left with the z by n. If I take for z equal to 1, n equal to 1, let v be equal to v naught. In the fundamental, what we call it, fundamental orbit, n equal to 1 is fundamental orbit, first orbit, for the first atom, means hydrogen atom. So fundamental orbit of the first atom, hydrogen atom, we call it as, I will represent it by v naught and r naught and so on. Okay. Then I will be getting in general, v will become equal to v naught, and then v naught will be equal to k e square 2 pi by h. Right? Then what is v? Okay. Now I will prefer to use formula. After that,
MBR equals to NH by 2 pi.
NH upon 2 pi. Let us use that one. Now we already know v naught into z by n into r is equal to n h upon 2 pi. So what is r? Write down r. I forgot to mention one very important thing here, very special. This thing is equal to speed of light upon 137. Why so? Nobody knows till now. It is something to be researched. We still don't know why 137 comes. Where does it come from? But yes, it comes out to be c upon 137. We call it as fine structure constant also. C is the speed of light. So we have very easy way to remember v naught. If I remember 137 first of all. What is r? R is equal to in this now r is n square in fact. Wait a second. R becomes equal to n square h upon z m sometimes we represent h by 2 pi as this way we call it sometimes h dash.
2 pi v
This notation. Let me write in that way only. I will be getting n square by z into m into v naught here into I will call it as h bar. That is nothing but h upon 2 pi. Then I can write r as same thing as I said before for z equal to 1 and n equal to 1 means fundamental orbit of hydrogen. R will be equal to r naught. So what this will become? R naught will become h by
m v naught.
surprisingly what it comes out to be equal to. No, not surprisingly. We know this result already. We were expecting this result, right?
0.529.
This is 0.529.
Into n.
Then we can write R as R naught into n square by z. Here I will say R naught star I will write. That will be equal to h upon this is not h bar. We understand what is this h bar? H bar means h upon 2 pi. Understand it? H bar means that. Now, one more relation we got here, and let me cover it up first. These two relations I have boxed. From here, I will get others also. From these two. As now it is just one by one. You can get all others by these relations which I already wrote before. 2 pi rn upon vn. We are mainly focusing on this thing. I could have written as k e square divided by h bar. So if I have angular momentum of two particle system having mass m1, r1 radius, r2, m2, binary star system, and rotating about center mass. Then what will be the angular momentum written as m1 v1 r1 plus m2 v2 r2? Is it right? What is that? I know that m1 v1 will be equal to m2 v2 if center mass is at rest, which will be equal to mu into v relative. Mu into v relative into r1 plus r2 is r relative, mu into v into r, where r is the distance between these. That is angular momentum.
Scroll ups.
Is it okay? Mu
Yes,
into
sir.
v into r, mu into v into r. I can also write it as mu into r square omega. Can you hear me? And then kinetic energy, half of mu into v relative square. That is kinetic energy. I have to look for kinetic energy also here. I forgot to mention that. Kinetic energy in the nth orbit, potential energy in the nth orbit, total energy in the nth orbit. These are all important for me. Why I discussed it here? Because let me warn you, we are writing m into v naught into r is equal to nh upon 2 pi, but actually mvr is not even angular momentum because only electron is not moving about nucleus. Although size of nucleus is nearly 1800 times the size of mass of nucleus is 1800 times than the mass of electron, or maybe more than that. Therefore, approximately it is correct that we can assume electron to be moving around the nucleus. But still, in fact, electron and nucleus both are moving around each other. If we consider that factor into account, then I should write mu into v relative into r is equal to nh upon 2 pi. Then angular momentum should be written this way. Centrifugal force, what centrifugal force should be written? Kinetic energy should be written this centrifugal force. Normally I am writing mv square by r, but then I will be writing it as mu into v square by r, or mu into omega square r, centrifugal force. If I take reduced mass into account, where reduced mass will be equal to m1, m2. What are m1, m2 here? M is the mass of electron, m1 is mass of electron, and m2 is mass of nucleus.
Nucleus.
Okay. So if I start using that, then I will find out that velocities will still come out to be same, v naught into z by n. Why? Because it does not have mass term. Wherever we have mass term, that mass will be replaced by reduced mass. For example, in r naught, what will be r naught value if I take mu into account? What will be r naught value if I take mu into account? Then r naught value will not be h upon mu into v relative. H bar upon mu means, or I can say nh upon 2 pi will be equal to mu into v relative into if h is 1, n is 1, mu into V naught into R. That it will be. Okay. Let us write kinetic energy quickly. What is kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is half of m into V square. Now we will do it very fast. I hope you remember these relations now. Half of m into V naught square into Z square by n square, or I can say kinetic energy of fundamental orbit into Z square by n square, without taking a reduced mass into account. If I take reduced mass into account, then by taking reduced mass into account, I will write K naught star will become equal to half of mu into V naught square, which is equal to half of m into V naught square by m times mu, which I can write as K naught into mu by m. That will be K naught star. K naught star means by taking reduced mass into account. Similarly, R naught star. What will be R naught star? R naught star in terms of R naught. Let us call it R naught star here. Let us write it R naught star here. So R naught star will be equal to H upon m into V naught into m upon mu. So it is becoming R naught into m upon mu. That is, we should know this. It will be handy in some calculations, some places where they say consider the reduced mass into account. It will also be handy in one more place where they say it is a hypothetical atom in which the nucleus is of double the nucleus mass of hydrogen. Then what will happen to the nuclear radius, the radius of the first atom, radius of the first orbit? We can see if the mass becomes 2 times, then this will be 2m and this will be m. Then R naught will become 1 by 2, R naught by 2. So we should know how the radius etc. depends on z and n, but we should also know how they depend on m. And luckily, velocity does not depend on m. That will be independent of m. Okay. Right or not?
Sir, time up.
Okay. What you will do today then? Today you concept only you do today. Today you will not be able to solve any problems. But concept you have to read of Bohr's atomic model also. Bohr's atomic model concept you should be reading completely. And X-rays concept also you should be reading. Tomorrow we will start doing problems. Okay. Today you don't do. Okay, then I am ending it now.